Friends, recently you and I completed a major 7-week road trip that took us through 10 states, 2,000 miles, 6 racetracks, some of them the most storied on the NASCAR circuit, and even made some time to pet a real live leopard. Well, throughout that entire journey, you and I never spent a lot of time talking about the car we were driving. So let's get back to the basics of our business and do a full first drive review of the 2017 Mini John Cooper Works Convertible. So for our first ever multi-state episode, I found the perfect place to talk about engines: Greer, South Carolina. Now, you probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about if you don't know what this building is. This is the BMW Performance Center. There is a racetrack behind it. There is a BMW factory over there. We're just outside of Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina. And actually, there's a little known fact about this building. If you buy a new BMW, you can opt to have it delivered here instead of the dealer you buy it from. Like these people over here, the 2 Series and that 3 Series over there. You can, I guess it's like driving it out of the factory, but really the factory's across the street, and those 2 cars weren't built in that factory. Anyway, I digress. Let's focus on the engine of a Mini, which is still part of the BMW family. So you and I have driven this engine before. We drove it in that Mini Cooper Clubman not far from here in Savannah, Georgia. And so to recap, it's a 2-liter 4-cylinder direct injected turbocharged engine. But there's some changes here because this is the John Cooper Works, which is Mini speak for hot rod. And basically what's going on here is more power, more torque. So it's 228 horsepower, that's 39 over that Cooper Clubman we drove, and 236 pound-feet of torque. But what's interesting to us is where that power comes in terms of engine speed. So in the horsepower department, it's a little bit high. It's 5,200 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 6,000 RPM. But what's more interesting is the torque. It still comes in at a very low 1,250 RPM. But what's further interesting here is how do they develop that kind of power, or really pulling power, from such a small engine? And now we talked about a twin power turbo in other Mini episodes, as well as BMW episodes. Now in a BMW 7 Series, that does mean 2 turbos. Here it does not mean 2 turbos. Here it means 1 turbo and a suite of like air induction technologies. So yeah, there's direct injection and there's the turbocharger, but there's also variable valve timing and variable cam. They all kind of work in conjunction with each other to develop the power at a low RPM, but also have power high up, meaning horsepower, to get the car to go faster. Like for example, this is a Mini convertible that will top out at 150 miles an hour. Now that's all fine and good, and if you saw our Mini Takes the States series where we took this car on multiple racetracks, we've already driven on a track, but how does all this power translate to out on the roads? Welcome to beautiful North Carolina, specifically the Cape Fear region. There are some stunning roads back here, so we figured let's do some pulling power. We are in, now remember, this is the John Cooper Works, and in the Cooper Convertible episode, we talked about like the dynamic drive system, which we drive in most cars that are now above, I mean, I've seen them as cheap as $15,000 where they have adjustable like throttle mapping. Well, this is no different here. This is a lot more than $15,000. So this is like celery mode, boring mode, blah mode, whatever you want to call it. But now as we cross another river here around the Cape Fear region, let's put our foot into it in green mode in a very green area. Yeah, it goes, even in green mode, but that's foot to the floor. And just as a little aside here, Mini promised me a stick. When we talked about this, they said, oh yeah, we're gonna give you a stick this time, because now this is the 3rd episode, Mini episode, but look what we get, an automatic. Okay, so now as we go over another nice little river here in the Cape Fear region, let's switch to the mid mode, which this would be like the normal mode if you didn't have a dynamic control, but you really don't have that option in the JCW. You only get the adjustable system. So let's put our foot into it, going uphill here. And if I'm honest, it's not a huge difference in the throttle mapping and the transmission mapping between this and the green. It's definitely quicker than that Cooper we drove before. Definitely quicker. You feel the pulling power of that extra torque and the extra 39 horsepower. There is no doubt about it. But you and I are not here for mid-mode and certainly not green mode. I mean, come on, people. This is JCW. This is full fat. So let's go to sport mode. Oh, and before I even put my foot into this thing, the tach, basically the engine speed, goes up just a little bit. Now let's put our foot into it. Oh yeah, the throttle mapping definitely changes here. So effectively, no difference between green and mid, but you put your foot into this thing in sport. It's actually, I mean, this is a quick little car. You know what? It's almost like Miata quick, and it's a lot heavier. Now granted, there's a lot more power underneath that hood than the Miata, but yeah, I would definitely say this is Miata quick. Especially on the beautiful roads of Cape Fear, North Carolina. Not the best of names, but very nice roads. And for the next stop on our multi-state journey, have you ever heard the term, don't tell it to me, sell it to me? Well, being that we're at a racetrack, let's talk driving dynamics. Now, there are some significant differences between this and the Cooper convertible that Emmy and I drove, a couple months back. First and foremost, anti-roll bars front and rear, torsion struts front and rear. Now this one is fitted with like a different wheel. This is the 17-inch wheel fitted as standard on the Works edition. Now there is an 18-inch wheel that is on offer that looks much cooler than this. But then there's another big difference here, and that's the brakes. This is fitted with a Brembo brake package, but specifically in the front it's a 4-piston caliper. Now let's put that aside, and really, if I'm honest, from a driving dynamics point of view, this is a bit of an oxymoron because this is the hot rod model, but the hot rod model with a chopped off roof, which means you have a lot of torsional flex there. So in the regular Cooper convertible that Emmy and I drove, there was that stiffening plate they put underneath the subframe. Now that's on all new Cooper convertibles, and the whole idea is to increase the structural rigidity of the car even with no roof. Now, I firmly believe that people will be stealing those stiffening plates and put them on the coupes to help their coupes go around a track. But this, well, it works in conjunction with another bit of stiffening, and that's in the door sills here, and that's specific to the John Cooper Works. Now, that's a lot to go through, a bit of a laundry list. How does it all work out on the road? Welcome to Richmond, Virginia and Richmond International Raceway. When you and I usually do these driving dynamics bits, it's usually on like canyon roads, and with a car where we're dealing with structural rigidity isn't a problem. Here we've lopped the roof off a relatively heavy car, and we have the opportunity to drive on a track, so let's do it. The entire purpose of this little experiment is to determine what happens when you add this much power to a somewhat stiffer platform and then lop the roof off. So let's get the speed up here, get into a banked, sort of oval. Actually, this is a D-shaped track. That's Richmond International. It's one of the shortest tracks on the NASCAR circuit. It's 3/4 of a mile. Okay, that's about 70 miles an hour. Let's go into sport mode. There's definitely some lean, but you know what? It's more a little bit of plowing over there than it is lean over to the side. Now we're in sport. Let's go on to the banking. I love bank turns, people. It definitely controls the plowing a bit up there, but you definitely feel the front drive bias, and it's, if I'm honest, it's more noticeable than in the regular Cooper S. Granted, we didn't go at these kind of speeds on the canyons with Emmy and the Cooper S, and we didn't have this much power. But at the end of the day, it's incredibly controlled overall beyond the push being at the front. I mean, it's a front-wheel drive bias car, you can't get around that. And that probably has a lot less to do with those extra stiffening plates in the sills in this JCW, and more to do with that stiffening plate that this shares with the Cooper. It really transforms the car, and again, I've told you guys before, I feel like people are going to steal them out of these cars and put them in their hardtop Coopers and hardtop JCWs, because it really manages what is effectively a heavy car with a good amount of horsepower. And heavy, it's a relative term. Is it an AMG Mercedes? No. We're talking low threes, but low threes with only 228 horsepower. But think about this. Miata fast, front wheel drive bias, but at the end of the day, it's still somewhat composed in an unusual environment where you really wouldn't take a car like this. I don't know, do you think we broke through? Wait a minute, I can see through the space-time continuum. No need to adjust your screen, and yes, the car behind us certainly ain't no mini convertible, but what we are is a glimpse from your future. Specifically, Season 7 of our show, MotoMan, kicking off in January of 2017. Kumo wanted to come on and share with you some of the exciting changes. So yes, all of the shows you know, like the First Drive reviews, the tech reviews, and Ask MotoManTV, will continue in Season 7 and beyond. However, we're going to add a couple of new things and shake some stuff up. Like, for example, remember Inside the MotoMan Studio, the show where you and I get to talk to the people shaping the car world? Well, that comes back on a weekly basis. And then we're also going to continue with the mini-series, but we're going to go to the country where this car was born and build, well, not that. We're going to build one of their competitors from start to finish over an 8-week period. And then we're going to have a couple of more surprises. Isn't that right? So join us in January of 2017 when we kick off Season 7 of our show. And maybe every once in a while, I will wear real pants and real shoes just for you from the future. So now, back to our regularly scheduled program and your present. And now for something completely different. But first, welcome to the D, otherwise known as Motown. So you and I have had a very different experience with this thing. This, if I'm honest, this is a fancy tuner car, but we've now driven it like almost 1,500 miles, and I'm probably going to put another 500 miles on this thing. And I got to be honest, when I got on board this thing, I didn't think it was the right tool for the job, because it is a fancy tuner car. You wouldn't expect it to do well over long distance drives because it's short, and short cars don't do well on interstates. But we've had the experience of driving it on interstates, on country roads, on twisty roads, on basically a lot of different types of roads, plus multiple racetracks, short tracks, long tracks, NASCAR tracks. So other than inclement weather, I've literally done everything with this car that one could, and I'm coming away with, you know what, this is actually not bad as a long distance car, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, it's unmarked. First and foremost, it's, when we didn't talk about this in the tech review or this episode, the wheelbase. It's short, but it's wide. That combined with the multi-link rear suspension in this thing, that's really the reason why minis work so well, but it's also the reason why this mini works well in an environment where you're actually driving long distances. So in summary, what do we got? Well, it's very quick. It is got a folding top. And it is damn fun to drive, but is it a hardcore track car that you are going to go track to track like we did around the country? Probably not. This is definitely a solid, upper solid GT car. So with that, I want to turn this around to you and leave you with like a two-part question. Or really part number one, is for the people who own this or own previous versions, or people that want to buy this. Like, why do you want this car and what would you do with it? And then part two is, and this is open to anybody, what do you think this competes with? Is it a competitor to like a Miata, or does it not compete with a Miata at all? And really, it's just in a class all by itself. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with two things. Number one, make sure you download our fancy new mobile application, which now that you've met the people behind the app, you really need to download it. And if you didn't see that episode, it was a lifestyle episode we did with this car going around the country. Lots of fun. We did like 3 or 4 episodes. Definitely check them out. And number two, a fun fact. I told you that we would be shooting this episode in every part of the episode in different states. Well, I am promising you, here is a different state. This, Pennsylvania. And until I see you next time, probably with one state episodes, bis später. And before we close this out, can I just say most of our driving dynamics bits should be on racetracks like this? Even if it's an oval or a D, I don't care. But I need me my own racetrack.